Hi, this is Katrin Parker. I post on Twitter as Jon Snow 420 with underscores, Jon underscore Snow underscore 420, and I'm on the internet dressed up as a Hammer Horror Bride of Dracula or Dracula for two reasons. Firstly, it's Soren's birthday. He is at Corpse Hands and is a fantastic artist and very funny, good friend, a gentleman and a scholar. So I follow him, and the other reason is to read Room on the Broom. No, that was one that I got from my nephew. To read Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. So this is where we find out if Stephenie Meyer... Oh. I don't want to do it. Oh, okay, so I've agreed not to read the book before charging ahead and reading it aloud to you. So we'll be going on this journey together. This is the 10th anniversary edition of Twilight, and it's been rewritten so that the genders are reversed. I don't know if everybody's gender is reversed or just Bella and Edward, but we'll see. To my boys, Gabe, Seth, and Eli, for letting me be a part of the teenage boy experience. I couldn't have written this without you. I'm going to just pass that by, that's fine. Forward. Hello, lovely reader. First things first, I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm not going to read the foreword because it's not the story. Okay, so we're going to press on. We start with a quote from Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. If his destiny be strange, it is also sublime. Preface. I'd never given much thought to dying, though I'd had reason enough in the last few months. But even if I had, I wouldn't have imagined it like this. I stared across the long room, into the dark eyes of the hunter, and she looked pleasantly back at me. At least it was a good way to die, in the place of someone else, someone I loved. Noble, even. That ought to count for something. I knew that if I'd never gone to Forks, I wouldn't be about to die now. But terrified as I was, I couldn't bring myself to regret the decision. When life offers you a dream, so far beyond any of your expectations, it's not reasonable to grieve when it comes to an end. Why not? The hunter smiled in a friendly way as she sauntered forward to kill me. Ooh. Ooh. That was just overly dramatic of me and extremely hammy, but let's go. Chapter 1. First Sight. January 17th, 2005. My mum drove me to the airport with the windows rolled down. Okay, there's going to be a lot of extremely boring detail in this because it's Twilight. So, though it was January everywhere else, it was 75 degrees in Phoenix and the sky was bright blue. 75 degrees Celsius that's like almost boiling, probably. I had on my favourite t-shirt, the Monty Python one with the swallows and the coconut that Mum got me 2 Christmases ago. It didn't quite fit anymore, but that didn't matter. I wouldn't be needing t-shirts again soon. Wow. He's already accepted death. In the Olympic Peninsula of northwest Washington State, a small town named Forks exists under a near constant cover of clouds. It rains on this insignificant town more than any other place in the United States of America. It was from this town and its depressing gloom that my mum escaped with me when I was only a few months old. It was in this town that I'd been forced to spend a month every summer until I was 14. That was the year I finally started making ultimatums. These past 3 summers, my dad, Charlie, vacationed with me in California for 2 weeks instead. Fairly riveting. I see that the parents' genders haven't been switched, yet somehow I now found myself exiled to Forks for the rest of my high school education. A year and a half, 18 months. That is 18 months. It felt like a prison sentence, 18 months, hard time. When I slammed the car door behind me, it made a sound like the clang of iron bars locking into place. Okay, just a tad melodramatic there. I have an overactive imagination, as my mum was fond of telling me. And of course, this was my choice. Self-imposed exile. Didn't make it any easier. I loved Phoenix. I loved the sun and the dry heat and the big, sprawling city. And I loved living with my mum where I was needed. You don't have to do this, my mum said to me the last of 100 times just before I got to the TSA post. Why is he doing it? My mum says we look so much alike that I could use her for a shaving mirror. It's not entirely true, although I don't look much like my dad at all. Her chin is pointy and her lips full, which is not like me. But we do have exactly the same eyes. On her they're childlike, so wide and pale blue, which makes her look like my sister rather than my mum. We get that all the time, and though she pretends not to, she loves it. On me, the pale blue is less youthful and more unresolved. He has unresolved eyes. Staring at those wide, worried eyes, so much like my own, I felt panicked. I've been taking care of my mum for my whole life. I mean, I'm sure there must have been a time, probably when I was still in diapers, that I wasn't in charge of the bills and paperwork and cooking, and general level-headedness. I can't even say it, much less live it, but I couldn't remember it. Was leaving my mum to fend for herself really the right thing to do? It had seemed like it was, during the months that I'd struggled towards this decision, but it felt all kinds of wrong now. Yeah, your mum is an adult baby, why are you leaving her? Oh, okay. Of course she had Phil these days, so the bills would probably get paid on time. There would be food in the fridge, gas in the car, and someone to call when she got lost. She didn't need me as much anymore. This poor... Okay, I did read Twilight, but it was 10 years ago when it came out. Wow. I want to go. I lied. I've never been a good liar, but I've been saying this lie so much lately that it almost sounded convincing now. Sorry. Tell Charlie I said hi, is the mum speaking. I will. That's the boy speaking. I'll see you soon, she promised. You can come home whenever you want. I'll come right back as soon as you need me. But I knew what it would cost her to do that. Don't worry about me, I insisted. It'll be great. I love you, Mum. She hugged me tightly for a minute, and then I walked through the metal detectors, and then she was gone. No, you were gone. Unless you just booked it out of the airport. It's a 3-hour flight from Phoenix to Seattle, another hour on a small plane up to Port Angeles, and then an hour drive back down to Forks. Flying's never bothered me. The hour in the car with Charlie, though, I was a little worried about. Charlie had been pretty decent about the whole thing. He seemed genuinely pleased that I was coming to live with him sort of permanently for the first time. He'd already gotten me registered for high school and was going to help me get a car. Not bad. But it would be awkward. Neither of us was what you'd call extroverted. Probably a necessary thing for living with my mother. But aside from that, what was there to say? It wasn't like I'd kept the way I felt about Forks a secret. I'm sorry, this stuff is really riveting, but I think... Yep, here she comes. Out, come on, sweetie. Come on. No. No. Okay. My 3-legged cat was trying to sit on me, but it didn't work. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. When I landed in Port Angeles, it was raining. It wasn't an omen, just inevitable. I'd said my goodbyes to the sun. Much as a vampire would. Charlie was waiting for me with the cruiser. This I was expecting too. Charlie is police chief swan to the good people of Forks. My primary motivation behind buying a car, despite my serious lack of funds, was that I hated driving around town in a car with red and blue lights on top. Nothing slows down traffic like a cop. I stumbled off the plane into Charlie's awkward one-armed hug. It's good to see you, Beau. The name is Beau. I assume his full name is Isabeau. It's good to see you, Beau, he said, smiling as he automatically steadied me. We patted each other's shoulders, embarrassed, and then stepped back. You haven't changed much. How's Renee? Mum's great. It's good to see you too, Dad. Oh, how does she do it? How does she write such natural dialogue? I wasn't supposed to call him Charlie to his face. You really feel okay about leaving her? We've covered this. We both understood this question wasn't about my own personal happiness. It was about whether I was shirking my responsibility to look after her. This was the reason Charlie had never fought Mum about custody. He knew she needed me. It's fucked up. This is a child. I don't really know what to say about that, but that's kind of deeply disturbing. I think maybe if your ex-partner can't live on their own, maybe don't give them custody of your child. I don't know. Charlie's coming off like a total dick. But they've handed her over to another man, so that's okay. She's taken care of. It's an adult baby mother. Yeah, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't sure. Fair enough. Okay, Charlie. I only had 2 big duffel bags. Most of my Arizona clothes were too permeable for the Washington climate. My mum and I had pooled our resources to supplement my winter wardrobe, but it still wasn't much. I could handle both of them, but Charlie insisted on taking one. It's the attention to detail that really gets me. It brings it alive. It threw my balance off a little. Not that I was ever really balanced, especially since the growth spurt. Something teenage boys get. My foot caught in the lip of the exit door, and the bag swung out and hit the guy trying to get in. Oh, sorry. The guy wasn't much older than me, and he was a lot shorter, but he stepped up to my chest with his chin raised high. I could see tattoos on both sides of his neck. A small woman with hair dyed solid black stared menacingly at me from his other side. Sorry, she repeated, like my apology had been offensive somehow. Yeah, he replied gormlessly. And then the woman noticed Charlie, who was in uniform. Charlie didn't even have to say anything. He just looked at the guy, who backed up a half step and suddenly seemed a lot younger, and then the girl, whose sticky red lips settled into a pout. Without another word, they ducked around me and headed into the tiny terminal. Christ, we're only on page 6. Charlie and I both shrugged at the same time. It was funny how we had some of the same mannerisms when we didn't spend much time together. Maybe it was genetic. Maybe a lot of people shrug. Maybe a lot of things. I found a good car for you really cheap, Charlie announced when we were strapped into the cruiser and on our way. What kind of car? I asked, suspicious of the way he said, good car for you, as opposed to just, good car. Got a scrub car for his scrubs on. Well, it's a truck, actually, a Chevy. Where did you find it? Do you remember Bonnie Black down at La Push? La Push is the small Indian reservation on the nearby coastline. No. She and her husband used to go fishing with us during the summer, Charlie prompted. That would explain why I didn't remember her. I do a good job of blocking painful things from my memory. The contempt this guy has for both his parents is... I mean, I know teenagers are like that. But, wow. She's in a wheelchair now. This is Bonnie Black. This gender has been swapped. She's in a wheelchair now, Charlie continued, but I didn't respond, so she can't drive anymore. And she offered to sell me her truck cheap. What year is it? Oh, his son doesn't even know what year it is. I could see from the change in his expression that this was the question he was hoping I wouldn't ask. Well, Bonnie's had a lot of work done on the engine. It's only a few years old, really. Did he think I would give up that easily? This scrub father of mine. That's not in there. When did she buy it? She bought it in 1984, I think. Did she buy it new? Well, no. I think it was new in the early 60s. or late 50s at the earliest, he admitted sheepishly. Dad. See, he corrected himself. I don't really know anything about cars. I wouldn't be able to fix anything that broke, and I couldn't afford a mechanic. Really, Bo, the thing runs great. They don't build them like that anymore. The thing, I thought to myself. It had possibilities. As a nickname, at the very least. What would it be other than a nickname? Would you officially name your car The Thing? Right up on the side, I don't know. How cheap is cheap? After all, that part was the deal killer. Well, son, I kind of already bought it for you. As a homecoming gift. Charlie glanced sideways at me with a hopeful expression. Wow. Free. Nothing gets past this guy. You didn't need to do that, Dad. I was going to buy myself a car. I don't mind. I want you to be happy here. He was looking ahead at the road when he said this. Charlie had never been comfortable with expressing his emotions out loud. Another thing we had in common. So I was looking straight ahead as I responded. That's amazing, Dad. Thanks. I really appreciate it. No need to add that he was talking about impossibilities. Wouldn't help anything for him to suffer along with me. And I had never looked a free truck in the mouth. Or rather, engine. The engine is the mouth of the truck. That's fine. I don't know much more about cars than that either. Other than their mouths are definitely like the fronty bonnet. Well, now you're welcome, he mumbled, embarrassed by my thanks. We exchanged a few more comments on the weather, which was wet, and that was pretty much it for conversation. We stared out the windows. It was probably beautiful or something. That sounds pretty authentically teen, actually. Well done. Everything was green. The trees were covered in moss, both the trunks and the branches, the ground blanketed with ferns. Even the air had turned green by the time it filtered down through the leaves. It was too green. An alien planet. Eventually we made it to Charlie's. He still lived in the small two-bedroom house that he'd bought with my mother in the early days of their marriage. Those were the only kind of days their marriage had. The early ones. There, parked on the street in front of the house that never changed, was my new to me, truck. It was a faded red colour, with big curvy fenders and a rounded cab. And I loved it. I wasn't really a car guy, so I was kind of surprised by my own reaction. I mean, I didn't even know if it would run, but I could see myself in it. Plus, it was one of those solid iron monsters that never gets damaged. The kind you see at the scene of an accident, paint unscratched, surrounded by the pieces of the foreign car it had just destroyed. Interesting. Wow, Dad, it's awesome. Thanks. Serious enthusiasm this time. Not only was the truck strangely cool, but now I wouldn't have to walk 2 miles in the rain to school in the morning. Or accept a ride in the cruiser, which was obviously worst case scenario. I'm glad you like it, Charlie said gruffly, embarrassed again. Sorry, I won't do that again. It took only one trip to get all my stuff upstairs. I got the west bedroom that faced out over the front yard. Fuck's sake. The room was familiar. It had belonged to me since I was born. So you got your room, essentially. The wooden floor, the light blue walls, the peaked ceiling, the faded blue and white check curtains around the window. These were all a part of my childhood. The only things Charlie had ever made was switching the crib for a bed and adding a desk as I grew. The desk now held a second-hand computer, with the phone line for the modem stapled along the floor to the nearest phone jack. This was one of my mother's requirements, so that we could stay in touch. The rocking chair from my baby days was still on the corner. There was only one small bathroom at the top of the stairs, which I would have to share with Charlie. But I'd had to share with my mum before, and that was definitely worse. She had a lot more stuff, and she doggedly resisted all my attempts to organise any of it. Where I live, it's pretty rare to have more than one bathroom in a house, so this is an odd complaint to me, but okay. One of the best things about Charlie is that he doesn't hover. He left me alone to unpack and get settled, which would have been totally impossible for my mum. It was nice to be alone, not to have to smile and look comfortable. It was a relief to stare out the window at the sheeting rain and let my thoughts get dark. It's pretty teen as well. Forks High School had just 357, now 58 students. Oh, it's so important to get that right. There were more than 700 people in my junior class alone back home. All of the kids here had grown up together. Their grandparents had been toddlers together. Wow, their grandparents are toddlers. I would be the new kid from the big city, something to stare at and whisper about. Maybe if I'd been one of the cool kids, I could make this work for me. Come in all popular, homecoming king styles. But there was no hiding the fact that I was not that guy. Not the football star, not the class president, not the bad boy on the motorcycle. I was the kid who looked like he should be good at basketball, until I started walking. The kid who got shoved into lockers until I'd suddenly shot up 8 inches sophomore year. The kid who was too quiet and too pale, who didn't know anything about gaming or cars or baseball statistics or anything else I was supposed to be into. Unlike the other guys, I didn't have a ton of free time for hobbies. I had a checkbook to balance, a clogged drain to snake, and a week's groceries to shop for. Or I used to. So I didn't relate well to people my age. Maybe the truth was that I didn't relate well to people, period. Even my mother, who I was closest to of anyone on the planet, never really understood me. Sometimes I wondered if I was seeing the same things through my eyes that the rest of the world was seeing through theirs. Like, maybe what I saw as green was what everyone else saw as red. Maybe I smelled vinegar when they smelled coconut. Maybe there was a glitch in my brain. But the cause didn't matter. All that mattered was the effect. And tomorrow would be just the beginning. The chapter's still going, by the way. We're not done yet. Although I'm flicking, I'm not reading. Yeah, we got a lot more pages. Maybe I'll just upload this first bit and get right back to you. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm going to do. Sorry. Okay. Bye.